Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and deceased. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the pilot episode of Fear the Walking Dead. So, spoiler alert, because very shortly I will be bearing all in this review. However, I'll let you know when I actually do get into the plot details, because for those of you who are trying to figure out if you want to start watching the show, I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler-free breakdown, which is not typically what I do with these types of reviews. I've done several seasons of The Walking Dead on my channel. If you haven't seen those, there's a link in the description to that. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do here. Also, if you guys have been watching my channel and following my stuff, I uploaded a pretty big channel update video, and there's a link to that too. But we have business to attend to, as is the norm, so here we go. Spoiler-free impressions for ya, hot off the presses. I just finished watching the episode. Now, I'm not the kind of person who can normally tell just from watching a pilot whether or not a show is worth pursuing and keeping up with and falling head over heels in love with. I mean, I say that, but that's really quite a big generalization, because I know that when I watched, say, the pilot of Dexter, I was immediately hooked, and I knew that something crazy was going on that was going to revolutionize my brain, and it did. But that's a story for another time. A story that some of you guys already know. Anyhow, so being that I am deeply in love with The Walking Dead lore, the TV show, I'm only about, this far into the comics, sadly, but I'm still working my way through one of my compendiums on that front. So anyways, I come into this show being one who loves and has enjoyed the other forms of the Walking Dead universe and the stories therein, the characters. There's been ups and downs throughout the years. I fully recognize that, and ups and downs within each and every season, and the comic issues as well. But with this show, the premise itself is extremely divisive. Either you're going to be interested in the idea of sort of a prequel to what we see at the beginning of the Walking Dead comic/show. Either you want more of that and you want to delve into the logistics of what a world going mad looks like as it's happening, rather than after a coma and you've been out of the game for a while and are trying to find your way through the madness. Or you think that this is all just excessive. Really, there's kind of two camps. Some of you might find yourselves sort of ping-ponging back and forth between the two. Either, yes, this sounds really cool, I want more of this universe, I'm willing to check this out, or why is this happening? Why are we trying to capitalize on this any further? Why? Why do we feed the beast? But, for me, I personally am one who is willing to give this a shot. Did I like the premiere? Kinda. I would give it between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. I'm sitting right in the B- camp if we're giving this a letter grade. Mainly because, so it's a 90-minute premiere, and I didn't really feel my pulse pick up until about 45 minutes in, which I was not expecting. I saw the first 5 minutes that had been posted online and streaming different places, and so of course you've got this crazy scene, which I'll break down a little bit later, but then we go back to kind of, okay, this is life as everyone currently understands it before the virus is widespread, before pandemonium and the pandemic that it has caused, before those things are on the loose, before the world is in shambles, essentially. Which, that's kind of, sure, that's territory that inevitably you're going to explore if you're going back to the beginnings of things, but it also can be a little bit boring at times. So we have 4 main characters. Madison Clark, played by Kim Dickens, who I have a feeling I'm going to like her. I could see some badassery coming from her direction, but so she's a high school guidance counselor, essentially. Kind of rough around the edges, not too sentimental emotional, reactive. We do get moments from her where we can see that clearly she feels deeply and is tackling a lot head on in her personal life. But then also, of course, there is her boyfriend, high school English teacher Travis Manawa, played by Cliff Curtis. Seems like an upstanding dude. So essentially, Madison and Travis have fused families. They are, from what I can understand, there's divorce in both of their backgrounds, and so relationships with their children are somewhat complicated. Now, Kim's kids are Nick and Alicia. Nick is a druggy junkie, and Alicia is sort of this ambitious, achieving, like, I don't really know much about her yet. But, you know, it seems like kind of standard stuff, and really it is. I mean, yeah, there's personal drama that's unfolding, and it stands in very, very stark contrast to the things to come and some of the things that are set in motion in this episode. But yeah, I feel like the premiere lingered a little bit too long on the aspects of these characters' lives that don't really apply to what's coming. I was hoping for a lot more foreshadowing from the get-go, or at least more compelling foreshadowing, because they're, you know, they throw some bones every here and there, but it's kind of the most obvious stuff. So things really kind of start to pick up the pace, like I said, around the halfway mark in the episode. And still nothing too cataclysmically mind-blowing, but nonetheless, I think there's a lot that warrants discussion, and, you know, long story short, am I going to keep watching this? Yeah, absolutely. My plan is to at least watch the first season, get a gist of how things are going, and then make my decision to carry on or not. Because inevitably there's going to be seasons upon seasons more of the original Walking Dead, which I'm very, very excited for. That's October 11th, and you bet your bottom that I will be reviewing that. And, yeah. Bottom. Wow, that is not a word that I use frequently in my vocabulary. But anyway, so this is kind of the end of spoiler-free things at this point. So if you want to go check it out for yourself, form your opinion, come on back here and talk, we can do that. I would very much like that. So now, of course, we get into the nit and the grit, as I like to call it. So yeah, I'm trying to think of where the best place to begin is, because I don't really want to just do a straight recap. I'm sure that you guys could find any number of well-written recaps and play-by-plays of the episode as a whole. And like I said, kind of the setup that we get is not all that compelling to me. I don't know. I don't know if I am picky or insensitive, but I know that things are going to get better. And so I'm perfectly okay with one slower episode in the batch as long as whatever is to come delivers. That's really all I want and could ask for. This is just sort of a chance to get to know the characters that we're going to be following as the world goes to shit. And that's kind of the way that I boil it down in my mind. I really like Travis and Madison. I mean, they're surprisingly cool in the face of adversity. We do see Madison break down a couple of times as she's staying in her son's hospital room after he is rescued from the accident, after the other accident in the junkie church. And then when she and Travis ultimately go to visit that place and realize that, yeah, something really went down that just seems like out of the usual types of violence that ensue in those kinds of environments. Yeah. So anyways, we do kind of get to see her break in those ways. I think that Madison's going to shape up to be an interesting character and quite possibly a good survivalist as things go on. I could see that being the case with Travis too. I mean, we meet him and he is fixing the sink all by himself. So, you know, maybe he's got the domestic maverick skills. Hopefully he could apply that to survival situations in the future. And of course he's teaching on that classic Jack London novel and talking about, nature versus humanity and all these themes. I mean, yeah, like I said, the setup is not spectacular, but I didn't hate this episode. In fact, I really think that it was quite good. And they do a good job of setting up the dominoes on an entirely different coast, an entirely different part of the continental US. In fact, the opposite side, which has its own culture, its own sort of population centers. And what really is kind of taking me forward and making me want to continue watching is to see, how soon is martial law going to come into effect? How is everyone in this incredibly dense populace going to react as things hit the fan quickly, which it appears that they're going to do? Now, also, of course, I really want to know if we're going to get any further insights into the origins of the virus, because it does seem strange that this thing could spread so quickly and with so little notice, if in fact it's the bite that gets you. But what we do know certain other things from The Walking Dead regarding people who are actually carriers of the virus and how you turn. And I'm not going to get into that at this point because some of you might not even have seen the original Walking Dead. And maybe this is the point at which you are entering, in which case I would highly recommend to you that you go back to the original series. It'll change your life a little bit. But yeah, so I look forward to seeing how these characters that have been introduced to us now are going to react to things. And clearly even Nick is the one who is really immersed in this dark world. He is very quickly exposed to what's going on, to what that high school student Tobias was pointing at when he didn't want to give up his gun his knife to Madison, talking about like strength in numbers and just kind of all this abstract stuff. He doesn't really want to come out with it, whereas Nick is living this stuff firsthand from watching his girlfriend turn and presumably having killed a whole bunch of people in this junkie convent of sorts, and then ultimately having to kill his drug dealer, who then disappears and comes back reborn, as it were. And so I value the opportunity to get to experience these things and these changes through the eyes of somebody like Nick, who, despite his addictions and his weaknesses and his everything that's going on in his body and mind, he's able to react very quickly to what's going on around him. And that's something, I mean, as a well-seasoned and well-versed viewer of The Walking Dead, I'm picking out the ones who are going to survive, the ones who are going to take a stand against the brutality of nature and who's going to make their way into this world. That's not to say that I don't have a spot in my heart for those who are unable to progress in this world. I ain't no Charles Darwin, but at the same time, these are the things that I am personally picking out in my survivalist brain, and that I kind of value. People who, even if they don't fully possess the ability to ward off every physical oncoming threat, even if these people aren't Michonnes and Rick Grimes, like, to see how they strive to become that in their own ways, whether that be through cunning, through self-defense, or, fighting prowess, whatever that is. That's kind of what's going to be exciting, is how these people transcend the fear towards these immediate circumstances and find a way to get through, to get by, to not necessarily try to just barricade themselves behind closed doors and, meet their own bloody demises, but to really take a stand against things, to protect others. So what's gonna be the point of fascination is like the societal shifts, as well as whether or not we can get attached to these characters and really experience their transformations as they are transforming in the face of these harrowing odds. And that's what I really want to see. Now, I have to bring up something that bothers me just a little bit, and it might seem kind of funny, but maybe it's something that resonates with you guys too. The fact of the matter is that the original Walking Dead series for TV, that kicked off, was that 2009, 2010? Before that even? I have no idea. I started watching around the time that I think the third season was airing, was when I started catching up and then got into the game. But yeah, so that was years ago, and the technology was far outdated compared to the smartphones and stuff that we have. I always struggle with watching modern film in which phones and technology are heavily relied upon, simply because a lot of the time it gets rather awkwardly implemented, like with the way that we see people texting and just stuff like that just kind of grinds my gears and like almost takes me out of the story experience, because I'm just like, what? People still text that way? Like, what's going on? It's so stupid. So stupid, right? But I almost kind of wished that this would, like, be set several years ago to just match the aesthetic of the original show. Or at least the time frame, not the aesthetic, because that's in Georgia. This is in LA, California. But still, that would have been kind of cool. At the same time, I think that the reason why this is, yes, it's part of the Walking Dead universe, but it's adapted to this modern time, is because it makes it more terrifying for us as the modern audience. Like, what would it actually be for us in our lived day-to-day immediate experiences to watch the world go to hell? And it's something that really resonates with so many of the crazy things that have been going on in the world. I mean, from at this point in time, as of the time that I'm filming this, like with wars and droughts and crazy wildfires and just all this stuff that we're getting constant coverage of, and you just feel kind of inundated with, how do you react to it? How do you know when a threat is going to come knocking on your door and quite possibly breaking it down? And, you know, how do these things progress? And so, of course, having this show set in a modern context with people using their phones and going about their lives as generally many of us do, it makes it feel that much more real. It's something that kind of taps into the fear centers that we've developed today in our culture and our society. So in that sense, I think it's a smart enough move. And as we could see from the previews for upcoming episodes, things were going down fast. Like, bye-bye Wi-Fi, goodbye Candy Crush, adios and farewell to all the mundanities and the things that we expect of the day-to-day, because, well, it's us versus the dead. So that's coming quickly, and I don't think I'm going to have so much to worry about in terms of, like, being stuck in this weird sense of modernity. But, yeah, I just thought it would have been cool if, like, the show was kind of matching the time frames the original, but I get it. I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm really not. But yeah, so I am probably joining many other viewers who have seen the show so far and who desire to go forward with it, but are hoping for bigger and better things. It's tough when the whole premise of the show is, like, not super novel, because it's like, we know where this is headed. And this is why I'm sort of vetting characters in my mind, and I'm like, okay, who am I putting my money on? You know, it's so bad. It's so bad. I have already had my humanity mangled and, you know, torn to shreds by previous Walking Dead experiences. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a fundamentally different experience. Even though we know what's coming, this presents the writers with the opportunity to find different ways of pulling the rug out from under our feet. It's a totally different landscape, totally different climate of people, of cultures, of ideas, of it's gonna be wildly different. Or at least if the show proves itself to be good, then it's gonna be different and it's gonna feel like a good companion piece to the other show. It's weird having already seen the premiere, but already be kind of stuck talking about the future of the show. You know, that just goes to say that, yeah, this episode wasn't really one for the history books, but I think it's leading into some pretty crazy things. So I hope that you guys are with me on that. Sorry I didn't really get too far into the plot or anything. I would love to hear your thoughts about specific aspects of the episode that you liked or didn't like or whatever. I think that the show did a great job of establishing settings, like with the spooky yellow bathed church. I think that was a really awesome kind of place to return to and to begin in, getting to see all the different spaces of the greater LA region. It's certainly not your traditional kind of Hollywood milieu. This is a very, very sprawling and immense setting filled with so many different families and groups, and it's going to be fascinating to watch the mayhem unfold and to just see how society is going to warp. That's pretty much what I'm getting out my foam finger for. I'm ready to watch this go down. So let me know what you guys thought. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, but I shall be back. Now, I will be gone in Italy for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to miss one of the episodes, but I will probably be reviewing that when I get back and then pick up the rest. So look forward to that. Thank ya. What am I saying? Thank you. And as always, I will be back before you know it.